you've shared about the second and third density to quite some extent. Can you share about the fourth, fifth, and sixth, like what's in front of us, or even the seventh as well? And at the same time, when I was first looking at this information, I was getting research. It's like, what are the difference between densities and dimensions? There seems to be like quite a bit of similarities, but there seems to be differences. And I was trying to research where did dimensions go from, because the density I could clearly see that all the reference point back to law of one, but dimensions is like everyone's talking about dimension. Even physics is talking about dimensions. Not that I've learned it from school, but where did that come from? So can you share similarities and differences between like dimension and densities, and also like what's in front of us in terms of beyond the third density?
Okay. Different groups use different terms: planes, dimensions, or density. They're all the same thing. Ra uses density because they're talking about the amount of light, how dense that dimension or plane is in light. Every density beyond our third has more light in it. More information is in that density, more possibilities, more what we would call paranormal abilities are contained within all of that light. So the fourth density, Ra suggested they could say some things about that would make sense to us. But after a while, we don't have words to describe accurately what these are like. We just have to be satisfied with little images. They suggested that the fourth density that we're moving into now is 30 million years long. And our lifetimes there will be 30,000 years instead of like about 100. What we have here is at the most. So we'll be able to read each other's minds. We'll be aware of each other's thoughts. We won't be able to hide anything, and we won't have any desire to hide. There will be great harmony because all of us will be one being. When we communicate with Ra, there were 6.5 million entities within the Ra social memory complex. We were communicating with one individualized portion, but it was the same as communicating with them all. So that's what it'll be like in fourth density. The communication will be with everyone, and all thoughts will be understood. There will be great differences. Everybody will be unique, but these differences will be harmonized by group consensus. So the things that will not be, there will not be any kind of disharmony. It will not be possible to cause disharmony in any way. There will be a great feeling of compassion for the third density and the problems that people have here. There will be a great desire to be of service to others. It will be easier to create things with thought. We can build with thought, just like Ra built the pyramid by thinking. They didn't move a mountain, they created a mountain. It's called the Great Pyramid at Giza. And they did that with their minds.
And I think from reading the text, it says that we didn't want to make it like perfect. We want to make it more like man-made. So you get obsessed about this God creation, right?
Right. Yeah, it looks like it's a bunch of stones put together.
Yeah.
But it's made out of living stone, conscious stone. And they asked it to change shape, and it did, So it'll be similar to that in the fourth density, just not quite as powerful. So the fifth density is even harder to try to describe in words because we just don't have words for it. But we know it's the density of wisdom, and that love and wisdom are the two building blocks of the universe. So what we're doing as we go back or go higher into the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth, we're retracing the path of the creation as it was made outward from free will, focusing on love, creating light. So in the fifth density, it's the density of wisdom, and it's a very free density. Social memory complexes still exist, and you can function in a social memory complex, or you can go off on your own and function as an individual mind, body, spirit complex. And in the fifth density, there is a lot of desire to be of service to others. Many people become wanderers. Oddly enough, there aren't many fourth density wanderers because you have to have a lot of what Ra called either foolhardiness or bravery to go back into the third density and to forget where you came from, where it is so harmonious, and go into the third density where it's not so harmonious. So there are more and more entities in the fifth density that want to become wanderers and to hazard that forgetting process. So the fifth density is about 50 million years long. And the harvest there is, as I said, you can go forward as a social memory complex or as an individual. But at the end, the harvest, everybody comes together again and is harvested as a group. And in the sixth density, that's the density of unity. That's where balance is achieved between love and wisdom. Now, when there's enough love and wisdom, where they're balanced, it creates what Ra calls a power that is more likely to be of service to others, more efficient in its service to others, because you won't try to do so much for people as to help them do for themselves. Fourth density entities are liable to be very full of love and compassion, and maybe foolishly help, maybe try too hard and give too much. In the sixth density, the balance is achieved between love and wisdom so that you can be of service to others in a more effective way, in a way that does not infringe upon free will, in a way that enhances free will. And as I mentioned before, the negative entities discover a problem when they get into the sixth density. They can't go very far into it because that balance between love and wisdom means when you relate to other people, you have to see them the same as yourself. You have to love them the same as yourself, not separate them from them like negative entities do, not try to control them like negative entities do, but love them as yourself. And that means that the negative entities have to switch, they flip their polarity. They don't have to go back and start over because, as Ra said, the one infinite creator blinks neither at the light nor the dark. Their power is the same as ours. They can create just as much power because they are also the creator. And the way they do it is different than us, but they still create that power. And they use that power in the sixth density to flip the polarity to become positively oriented entities. Then after the mid-sixth density, which is where our higher selves are, by the way, then the concept of polarity is no longer necessary. It is dropped. It has helped us move from third density all the way through to mid-sixth density. But after mid-sixth density, there is no longer a need for polarity. We go consciously forward in all of our actions and thoughts and services at that point. And everyone has a teacher. At all levels, we have teachers. Ra's teachers are in the seventh density, and that's the density of foreverness. There is no length to it. You can't describe it with a length of time. That's where the eternal present becomes very obvious. And at that point, our higher self has another higher self. It's called the mind, body, spirit complex totality. And at that point, in the seventh density, that type of entity, which is part of our guidance system, gives all of its information from all of its incarnations to the higher self as it goes forward now and becomes the creator once again. And once again, eventually, the entire creation, all of the densities, all of the entities will coalesce in a spiritual, what our scientists see as a black hole. And everything will become one. All of the fruits, the efforts, the learnings will be given to the creator, which is ourself, as the product of the entire evolutionary process. And in that black hole, then, that is the culmination of everything. However, that black hole is not the end. On the other side of the black hole, the whole process begins again, with this chaotic seeming earth, wind, fire, and water blowing and burning incandescently. The first density begins again as a product of what is learned in the previous one. This is apparently a process that's been going on forever, infinitely in what we call the past, and will continue infinitely in what we call the future. So all of this is a non-stop process of the creator knowing itself.
Wow, fascinating. No, there are examples that Ra talks about as people who have obtained the service to others, and certain people that's achieved graduation for service to self. And I think they also talk about the people that's gearing towards service to self, taking a negative path. They also skip the fourth density as well, the loving density.
No, they don't. That's the love of self.
Okay.
They skip the heart center.
Heart center. Okay. They skip the heart center.
They skip their own heart chakra. They go directly from the solar plexus, the yellow, up to the indigo. And that is the way they contact intelligent infinity and make their own graduation.
Wow.
But they have a harder path to go. The positive entities only have to be 51% in service to others in order to make it. The negative entities have to be 95% service to self, almost perfectly service. It's a harder path.
So the people that's stuck between, they're not 51% yet, and they're not 90%. Those are the people that we're waiting for to try to get them to more positive oriented, to at least 51% to graduate, to harvest.
Right. They are unpolarized. Just like a car battery, you have to have a polarization in order for the battery to start the car. It's the same with the mind, body, spirit complex. If they don't have a choice, they haven't made a choice one way or the other, they don't have the power to do work in consciousness. And they will have to repeat the third density on another third density planet in order to try again. But everybody will eventually do it. Nobody gets left behind.
And so who are some of the examples that Ra talked about that have graduated either way?
Well, they didn't give us too much in that regard, but they did say that in the positive sense, back after the second 25,000-year cycle in South America, there was 150 entities that were harvestable. But the entities working with them, there was the third social memory complex from the sixth density working with them. So they sent them a messenger, an emissary, describing to them what it would be like to go into the fourth density, but also describing what the plight of their brothers and sisters was that had not been able to make the harvest. So they decided to stay. And Saint Teresa of Avila is one, Saint Francis, and Saint Augustine. These all reincarnated into the monastic tradition and are examples of positive polarity entities on our planet that stayed here. Negative entities, Ra suggested the one known as Rasputin, the Russian, Taras Bulba, and Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan, the great conqueror of, had the largest empire in the world from Eastern Europe to Asia, all through there. Those are entities that made the harvest in the negative sense. And they were conscious, Ra said they were conscious adepts. To be a negative entity, and you have to work very hard and be very efficient. And so these are three examples.
And there were mention of Hitler as well?
Hitler, you would think would have made it, but unfortunately, he did not make it because he thought that he was being of service to others by what he did. And so apparently Hitler is now in the inner realms, in a healing realm, because even though he was quite negative in his polarization, apparently he tried to move too fast in his incarnation and go up the energy centers without balancing the lower energy centers. And it caused a state of insanity where he existed in a dream world toward the end of his life and needed, after his incarnation was over, to go through a great healing process, which he may well still be in.